on behalf of COSA and of the National Archives. This is Mary Margaret Bell. I'm a COSA consultant. And just before we start, we want to just talk about a little bit of a housekeeping item, and then we'll get started with our presentations. We are asking you to put your name and location in the chat box to show everybody who's here. We're asking you to continue to do that. If you have any questions or communications during the webinar, we ask you to use that as well. And we'll be monitoring that during the question and answer period, the comment period. The chat box allows everyone who is present to see a question, any question you may ask. So that's one of the reasons we recommend you use that feature for any questions and comments when we get to that point. So now we're going to begin our actual program, and I am going to introduce Barbara Teague, who is the Executive Director of the Council of State Archivists, and she is going to serve as our moderator today. So I'm going to pass the controls over to Barbara.
Thanks very much, Mary Margaret. I really appreciate that. We're so happy to see so many of you here today with us. We're really pleased to have Meg Phillips here from the National Archives and Records Administration, and she's going to give you a welcome and then pass back to me. Meg?
Hi, everybody. As Barbara said, this is Meg Phillips. I'm the External Affairs Liaison for the National Archives and Records Administration. And I just want to say briefly that this webinar, this series of webinars, is the outgrowth of a conversation that the COSA Executive Board had with the leadership at the National Archives in April about ways that we might be able to do better information sharing between the federal and state archives level. And we're going to be doing two new things that we have never really tried to do before. A series of webinars on archival topics of common interest from the state and federal level is experiment number one, and this is the first iteration of that. And then the second one is a Great Ideas Exchange Day, which we're going to have in conjunction with the joint annual meeting in August. And that's going to be a deeper dive on a couple of topics, or actually three topics that have been selected in conversation with the Executive Board of the Council of State Archivists. So I hope that these efforts will lead to better communication and more just collegial relations at the archivist level between NARA and state archive staff, just more people who know each other, who know who's working on what, and just generally a better sense that there is a strong relationship at all levels between the National Archives and the state archives. And as usual, I remain available to everyone in the state archives world. If you have questions about who to reach out to at the National Archives, I am at your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meg. And just on behalf of COSA, I will add to that we're very excited to be working with the National Archives to look for increasing information sharing and communication between our two organizations. It's a really exciting time also to be embarking on this effort. There's so many pioneering projects and programs underway at NARA and at COSA member institutions. So we hope if you have any ideas for sharing information among state archives with the National Archives, please do let us know. And with that, I'll go over the program for us a little bit today. We have a lot of presenters and very much information, so I'll try just to highlight who's speaking and their institution, and we'll get on with the program. From the National Archives, we have Andrew Wilson, who's the Acting Director of Digitization, and Becky Collier, who's an archivist and the History Hub Coordinator, and Kelly Osborn, who also works at the History Hub and is a web developer and community manager with the Office of Innovation in NARA. And they're going to talk about the History Hub today. And then from the Alabama Department of Archives and History, we have State Archivist and Director Steve Murray and Meredith McDonough, Meredith, the Digital Assets Coordinator. And with that, I will turn it over to oh, here's the agenda. Sorry, here's the agenda. We're going to first welcome you as we're doing today. We'll talk about the History Hub, the Alabama World War I Service Records crowdsourcing projects. We'll have Q&A. If you have any questions, that you think of during the presentation, go ahead and type them into the chat box, and we can get to them at the Q&A period. And then we'll have very short announcements at the end because we really want to concentrate on our program today. And now with that, I will turn it over to Andrew.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We're really excited about to speak about this work on History Hub. And I don't want to take away from the presentation of Kelly and Becky. They're the sort of the rock stars here. But I do want to plant a couple of seeds for you to think about while they're going through this presentation. One of the key things is that as we talk about History Hub, we're presenting this not just as a NARA project that is a model for how other people could do work, but really as a collaborative platform that many institutions, including your own, can actually work together with us to meet the expectations of a public that is increasingly digital and using these digital tools to get answers to their research questions. The second thing I wanted the seed I wanted to plant is again, back to what Meg had said previously. This particular presentation is a lead into the meeting in August. And as we're presenting the foundational sort of background on this project today, what we really want to do is get people thinking about how concretely we can partner with you on using this platform. And so if there's questions, ideas, thoughts you might have, concerns about this, really would like to hear about those ahead of time so we can really plan effectively for that meeting in August. So that's all I want to do, get you thinking about this. We're all really excited, and now I'm going to turn it over to Becky and Kelly.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to pull this closer. Let me know if you guys can't hear me or if I start to kind of like mumble. I am a mumbler. This is Kelly Osborn. I work for the National Archives. And History Hub is, wait, how do I make this go? Oh, there we go. Yay. History Hub is a crowdsourcing platform for people who are interested in researching history. And it includes a bunch of kind of social media business tools that people are probably used to seeing. This is what it looks like when you log in. The main thing that we are focusing on is having people ask a question. So, you just start typing in your question, and here are some of the questions that have been asked before in some of our communities. You can see that there's a wide range of topics that we cover, a wide range of archivists who are kind of working on the back part of this. One of our most popular communities is the Researchers Help. It's kind of where people are, like where they go if they're not really sure what to do next, if they have hit a stumbling block or if they are just not even sure who has their answer. So that's what it looks like. History Hub is a platform where people can get answers from multiple sources. Our idea was that we wanted to create a platform that wasn't the same as walking into a building or sending an email. We wanted to be able to have answers crowdsourced from a number of different places, including government and state archives. We want to be able to build a community of citizen experts. So sometimes the expert on a topic is not an archivist. Sometimes it's someone who's been working on a book or a professor. We also want a knowledge base that scales and improves in quality over time. So when people answer a question, that question stays available, stays Googleable, and if you happen across it and have more to add, then it's easy to add a comment. It's the result of ongoing research into how organizations communicate with and serve their audiences. We looked at a bunch of federal agencies into how they were kind of handling customer service and reference, and didn't find exactly what we were looking for in the sphere, the public sector. We did find something interesting in the private sector. So this is unfortunately based on my son dropping his phone in a toilet in Times Square, which I still feel scarred by. It's based on the trends in consumer research and powered by the same platform as the Apple support community. So basically, we're kind of modeling ourselves on the big tech companies like Verizon, MCI, Apple. So let me continue on to a real-world example. Here's the user perspective. So here's an example that can kind of give you an idea of what we're going for. we have a colleague who had, and I love this, she calls them clickers. She has 2 clickers and wants to, has one where she gets to her Netflix and Pandora, and one where she speaks into it and gets Health Centers International. I don't know what that is, maybe some of you do, but it resonates with a certain demographic. So she doesn't want 2 remotes, and honestly, I'm like, 2 remotes, you only have 2 remotes, good for you, but I think in my household I've got 5. But she doesn't want 2 remotes. No one wants more than 1 remote. So she was like, how do I consolidate into 1 remote? The how do I find out, that's kind of comparable to the research question that is on History Hub. So she asks on her Facebook page, how do I consolidate this? She's the parallel for her is the researcher. She has someone who says, "Oh, call customer service." That's not how people conduct research generally. Someone says, "I can help you tomorrow." I don't know why she has a problem with that, but that seems very generous, but that's not fast enough for her. Someone else who says, "We have the same thing but need both clickers." It's helpful but not what she was looking for. So the experts for this research question weren't people that she knew. So she was like, okay, there has to be a better way. I'm going to Google it. So she Googles it and gets to the Samsung Smart TV, the Comcast forums, which are very similar to History Hub, the same kind of platform. She sees that someone has asked the question already because nobody wants 2 clickers. And 2 hours later, he had an answer from a citizen expert who doesn't work at Comcast, just a silver problem solver. So womp womp, she is stuck with 2 clickers. But she asked a specific research question. She got her answer within a couple hours. People who are knowledgeable, the citizen experts, helped her out, and the answer is now available to anyone who Googles a similar question. So this is kind of what we're seeing, is that the consumer expectations and the consumer being the citizen are the general public's expectations are that they want to be able to ask a specific question. They want to be able to get help immediately, or immediately in a, we consider immediate in that your question is present and we can have citizen experts follow up, or they can answer questions. They want to be able to ask follow-up questions because sometimes the answers that you give aren't necessarily exactly what they were looking for, because sometimes they don't say the question exactly. Like it's difficult. You don't know what you don't know. And they want to be able to search and find an answer easily. So what problems can History Hub solve? I'm going to pass it over to Becky at this point. Do you want me to, I'll do the clicker?
Yeah, you can do the clicker. I don't need it. Okay.
All right. Next slide.
Yeah. At the National Archives, we respond to over 25,000 non-personnel-related questions in a year on a one-to-one basis, either by email or telephone, or plus in-person consultations in one of our research rooms, and we still get snail mail. Many of the questions are similar, and our responses are for the same records over and over and over again. Here's an example of a request that was answered via History Hub, suggesting the researcher check the Navy deck logs for information. Navy deck logs are one of our very popular records. But they won't contain all the information the researcher is seeking. The rest of the records are somewhere else. As you can see, we have referred the researcher to the Navy Historical and the NATO archives for records in their custody that may contain the rest of the information Captain Smith, the name of the researcher, needs to complete his research. This is another example of a request that probably cannot be answered using records only in the custody of NARA. So we let the researcher know what we have and what various university archives and the Library of Congress may have on this topic. So what are our goals? History Hub is an additional tool that we can use to assist researchers. Now, I'm talking from a reference archivist point of view, and is a different way for them to connect with us. Responses to requests are not limited to just NARA staff, but also the general public who conduct research on the same or similar topics and are willing to share what they know. Over time, a knowledge base will be compiled. Not only will this improve customer service, but will also meet their needs of knowing an answer in less time than they're currently receiving. We hope that this eventually will help decrease our reference load. Here's an example of a researcher sharing what they know with another researcher, and Joan was very happy with the response. The most popular History Hub communities are military records, researcher help, which Kelly already talked about, but actually we use it as a catch-all geared to basically civilian agencies of the federal government like State Department, FBI, Justice, etc., plus answering general reference questions. The genealogist community covers everything about immigration, census, naturalization records, as well as 18th and 19th century military records, except for those concerning Native Americans or African Americans. We have special communities set up for these questions about this topic. So what have we learned so far? Internal partnerships are key. Internally, NARA's research services has been part of History Hub for about 2 years. The focus group consists of archivists, archive specialists, and archives technicians, as well as supervisors and a coordinator. 5 members of the focus group are community managers that monitor the History Hub communities on a daily basis and assign requests to group members. They have about 1 to 3 days to respond to the requests, and the requests are reviewed and then posted. Please keep in mind that all the focus group members are volunteering to do this in addition to their regular job at NARA. So some lessons learned. We have found that we need to develop new work processes and to adapt to using this new way of communicating with the public. Since the focus group members are from research services all across NARA, we can be more collaborative about what we know. We also work closely with the staff in innovation, and they with us, since research services know the records and innovation knows the technology. Looking forward, the staff sees this as a new way to connect with our researchers and are proud to be a leader in showing alternative ways institutions like NARA and others can provide reference services. This knowledge platform is being built daily and is available for everyone to use. And we are very delighted when archivists from other institutions join us in this endeavor. This is an example of external collaboration with the Library of Congress Manuscript Division.
All right, and so we're really looking to work with state archives with you guys. We offer some things that are pretty unique to History Hub. I don't know, I feel like I shouldn't have said FedRAMP certified hosting environment now that I'm reading it. Like, I know I could have just said it was secure, but so if your government is, you know that this means this is a heightened security. It means that our site is unlikely to be hacked, and I'm just knocking on wood there. All posts and comments, everything before it goes live is moderated by our moderators. So if someone posts something that is completely insane, we got this one question that read like a superhero origin story. It was just like wackadoodle. I mean that in the clinical way. So that was off topic, so we did not let that go through. And we also edit posts for moderation or for PII, just to make sure that everything's on content. all of the content is correct. It's on topic, and we haven't had too many cases of someone being like abusive, but I think it's happened like maybe 2 or 3 times in the 2 years we've been live. So so it does happen, but we don't post it. And then you can, if you are interested in participating, you don't have to participate as an individual. You can create a group account or an office account. That kind of protects your privacy. Getting started is really easy. You don't need an MOU or an agreement because, like the Library of Congress we work with, we don't have a MOU. That's a memo of understanding for those who aren't totally wonky. You don't need one because the participation is open to everyone. However, if you do want to participate, contact me and we can give you an expert badge that has a little logo of for your institution next to your name. And also, we want to experiment with people and see how this works. More broadly, like maybe a short-term pilot or just an experiment. So, and another thing that we can do is if you have frequently asked questions on your website, a really, really easy and quick way to get started is we can kind of chunk up your FAQs into a question and answer format, and like I'll ask the question and one of you can answer it just on like whatever's already on your website. The benefit of using a platform like this as opposed to just having an FAQ is that when people are looking for a specific answer to a specific question, they don't always want to scan through, or they're not even like, that's just not the way people who aren't heavy-duty researchers, that's not the way that they get their questions answered. It's kind of similar to when you have a problem on your phone. You could read the manual that I'm sure everyone has like stuffed in a drawer somewhere, but more likely you're just going to go online and see like, how do I back up my phone, or is my phone truly ruined, or whatever. Similarly, when people are looking to convey information through an FAQ, those are not really read that frequently, but for a platform like History Hub, each question is its own entity that Google searches, and because it's constantly accessed and refreshed, it comes higher in the search results. So this is a really good way to if you have questions that you're answering again and again at your institution, it's a really good way to kind of get ahead of that. So please contact us, historyhub@nara.gov, or email me or Becky. We're happy to answer more questions or look into potential partnerships. And that's it. We're going to Meg gave me this look like, and I am not on the script here at this point, but just to wrap up the section on History Hub, before we toss it to Alabama, I just want to reiterate what Andrea and I were saying at the beginning, that there is going to be a chance to drill down deeper on the History Hub for any state archive staff who are attending the Great Ideas Exchange Day in August in DC. So if you have specific questions, we're really happy to answer them, and you can email us in the meantime, and then bring us your thoughts in August, and we'll start to think about how we might be able to create some pilots or start working together with some of the states who are interested. Thank you very much. Thanks, Meg.
Let me interrupt for a second. This is Mary Margaret. We got a comment. Looks like we have a typo in Rebecca's email address.
Oh, there is.
Yes. There should be an I.
Becky's looking at me like, you idiot. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Someone is very alert.
All right.
Yes, David Carmichael caught that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, off to Alabama now.
Good afternoon. This is Steve. And hi, Becky. I'm seeing that there's still a mute symbol next to Meredith's name. I just want to be sure everyone can hear us.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. It's pleasure to be here with our colleagues from NARA this afternoon, and very happy to talk to you about a project that we've been working on in Alabama. And I'll give a little bit of context, and then Meredith and I will pass the baton back and forth as we walk through this project, which is well advanced but actually still underway. Our agency has been very involved in the commemoration of World War I in Alabama, and has taken a lead role in the Alabama World War I Centennial Committee over the past couple of years. And here at the Archives, one of the ways that we wanted to promote awareness of the Centennial was through some concentrated digitization efforts. And we developed a priority list last year of a variety of types of materials, including photographs and manuscript collections and others. And one of the large record sets that we have that quickly became very attractive to us was our Alabama World War I service record collection. This is compiled in a variety of ways over in the years right after the war. Created about 3 different types of record cards that are included in this set. But it has obvious genealogical value, and we saw it as an important record series to try to get out into the public. So we identified this not just as a project that would be valuable for the content of the record, but also as a possible entree for us into the world of crowdsourcing, which is something that we had been thinking about for quite some time and looking for the right opportunity to step into that.
Archive staff and on-site volunteers digitized the collection, over 111,000 cards in about 18 months, and the initial work on that was completed in early 2017. But because we wanted the cards to be available throughout the Centennial, we added them to our digital collection before the transcription work began. We included only minimal metadata at that time, the name and the county, which we were able to extract automatically from the file names. And then we uploaded the cards in batches by county and first letter of surname rather than individually. So for example, we have here the search results for Franklin County, and on the second row, if you clicked on the H surnames for Franklin, you get a set of cards to browse through, from Ernest Hale to Henry Hyde. And that's useful but not ideal, because if you're looking for Henry Hyde, you don't want to have to scroll through 98 cards to get there. But we knew that a crowdsourced transcription project would be an opportunity to enhance the searchability of the collection much more efficiently than staff could do alone. And it would also be a chance to correct the metadata that we had extracted. Throughout this project, we have found numerous typos and filing errors which would have taken years to catch had we tried to do quality control ourselves.
So we began looking at options for how to develop a crowdsourced project. We needed in a state agency with a very small IT staff, we needed a solution that did not present a considerable new burden in that part of our agency. So we needed something that did not require extensive coding experience or technical support. We just didn't have the adequate resources to stand up a new server and to install either a off-the-shelf or open source or proprietary system, whatever route we wound up taking. We looked at doing some homegrown options, thinking about creative uses of Google technology and other things, and we're about to head down that road when we came across From the Page, which is an open source product that has been online for about 6 years now, and started looking into this and found it to be quite interesting. From the Page was originally developed to support free text transcription of manuscript materials such as diaries and letters, which is not exactly suitable for our very structured World War I cards. So in order to adapt the existing open source product, we talked with the creators of From the Page at Brumfield Labs, and they were very enthusiastic about working with us to augment the existing capability of the system. We also reached out to other partners in the state archives community, recognizing that this open source solution was going to create an opportunity for any repository who saw a need for structured field text transcription. And we were very happy to be joined by the Indiana State Archives, Virginia, and Missouri in thinking about how to have this solution come about. Here in Alabama, the Friends of the Alabama Archives, which is a 501c3 support organization for our agency, took the lead in expending the resources necessary to work with Brumfield Labs to do this augmentation work on From the Page, and our other state archives contributors from around the country pitched in toward that effort. We knew that we needed to create a user-friendly interface, hosting options that were adequate and adequately self-contained so that our IT staff did not have to take on that responsibility, and also provided integration with our existing digital collections, which we manage in Content DM.
As you can see from the image here, these cards are full of information, and while we would have liked to capture all of those details, we decided instead to focus only on the fields that we felt would be most useful for searching based on the experience of our reference staff. We also wanted this project to be accessible to a broad range of potential volunteers, many of whom might not have much experience with obscure military abbreviations or even computers in general. And we were concerned about the consistency and accuracy of the data that we collected if we asked for too much. To launch the project, we hosted an on-site training session on April 7th, and these are some photographs we took that day. We invited key volunteers, several who were active in local genealogical organizations, and about 15 people attended. This turned out to be a perfect number because it allowed for hands-on practice and one-on-one instruction and real-time user feedback. And this event was also a chance to test out our user guide and make several edits to it before sharing it with the volunteers who would later sign up. As the day wrapped up, we encouraged attendees to spread the word, and they did. For example, an announcement by the Alabama Genealogical Society was retweeted by organizations outside the state, which led to a post about the project on Eastman's Genealogy newsletter. And so we got a lot of out-of-state volunteers because of these social networks, which we certainly weren't expecting. Locally, we promoted the project on our social media, particularly Facebook, and we made a page for it on our Alabama History DIY website under a new heading of Virtual Volunteers, which is a phrase that we borrowed from the Library of Congress. On the actual page for the project, we asked contributors to contact me directly. We decided to keep our From the Page collection private, so I was able to set up accounts for the new users, give them access, and then send them the user guide and specifically ask them to read it. Other than this, though, social media and the web page, we really didn't do much more publicity. We had intended to, a press release at the very least, but it just wasn't necessary. In the first 12 days, over 10% of the cards were transcribed, and by the end of April, we had added over 100 users. The Brumfields were surprised and pleased by the response, and they periodically sent us reports from their back-end statistics. This chart shows progress as of June 8th. 70,000 cards were transcribed since that launch in April, so over 2 months. And only a month after this, the remaining 35,000 county cards had been done. Right now, we have about 3,000 cards left to go, mostly out-of-state servicemen who were in the 167th Infantry Regiment. The main focus of the project is finished, and so now the archive staff has to get back to work. The information supplied by the users can be exported in several formats, including CSV, which you see here. Our staff members convert these files to Excel spreadsheets, which they can easily edit to prepare the metadata back for re-import into our digital collections. So ultimately, we replace those sets of cards that you saw before with the individual cards. So now the search results. Like what you see here, previously these would have appeared as one set. These are the A surnames for Coffee County. But now if you're searching for, say, Lewis Alverson, you can go directly to his card instead of having to scroll through all the others. And this functions much more like our Gold Star database, which is another heavily used World War I resource on our website.
We had several very positive outcomes of the project, the first being that we created a meaningful World War I commemorative program that involved the public, and I'll come back and talk a little bit more in a second about some of the feedback that we received from our volunteers. Secondly, we accomplished a massive indexing project much more quickly than we could have in-house. We undertook a similar project with our very extensive Civil War service records years ago, and that project took about a decade to complete. to digitize those or to transcribe those records into a searchable database with a limited number of volunteers working on premises here. So it really transformed the way we do this work and also greatly enhanced the pace at which we could get the project completed. Third, it produced a technology that can be adapted for other crowdsourcing projects. In this case, we developed a capability that supports transcription of a single structured field record, but we've already had some conversations about the possibility of going back and further modifying that open source software so that it would support single images with multiple records contained in it. So things like ledgers and census books and similar types of records that would have multiple records on a given page. And then fourthly, and this can't be overstressed, is that we established a wonderful base of virtual volunteers and formed new relationships with people across Alabama, but also across the United States and even internationally. I think the volunteer who was working farthest away from us was in the Netherlands. Yes. And so we were very glad to have their participation. This is a great way to help extend our network and to introduce us to new people who have not known us before. And then you can see here on the screen some of the wonderful comments that we received from some of those volunteers. And these are just a small sample. Meredith saw many of these come in by email, but we also were happy to see these shared on social media as people were talking about the experiences that they were having. And they're all quite positive. That last one in particular talks about what a great experience this was to be able to contribute to this collective project, but also to have a sense of emotional connection to the lives of the people that they were reading about. And we heard from more than one volunteer who said that they could have been more productive if they had not spent some time going down a little side path to read more about some of these individuals whose records they were transcribing and looking more into the stories of their lives and their service during World War I. So we see this as really just the first chapter for us. We have a whole list of potential projects that could follow, including other military service record sets, but other types of materials as well. And one in particular that we're thinking about is how we can adapt this approach to working with records related to slavery in Alabama. It will be a significant challenge because of the multitude of types of records that we have related to that topic, but it's something that we are looking forward to spending some more time thinking about. That brings us to the end of our presentation, so we'll turn it back over and are happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve and Meredith, for that thought-provoking presentation, and also for Meg, Andrew, Becky, and Kelly for telling us more about the History Hub. It's really good, and it makes us think about all the innovative ways that we could bring our collections and our archives to the public. So we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, especially on our first NARA and CoSA joint webinar. While the rest of you are thinking about questions that you might want to ask, would you please just type those into the chat box and we'll read those out to the presenters. Sorry that we're not able to unmute everyone, but we don't want too much chaos. So if you just type them in for us, we'll be able to read them out to our presenters. While you're doing that, just a reminder for state archivists and other staff who are going to be attending the Great Ideas Exchange Day on August 14th. As Meg mentioned earlier, this is another part of our communication strategies to improve communication and increase collaboration between NARA and CoSA. So please bring all your questions there, too. We're going to be discussing both the History Hub and the Alabama Project in greater detail there. It's one of the 3 topics that we're going to look at during that Great Ideas Exchange Day on August 14th. We do have a question from Christina Miller. What level of quality control are you using in Alabama?
Well, that's been one of the lessons that we've learned. I know that right now, staff are examining the metadata that was created, and we're not looking at every single card, but there are certain fields that we've learned to be mindful of, and we're checking those as we go. But throughout the project, we did have other volunteers who stepped up and noticed things and let us know about it. And so the next time we do the project, we'll probably add a level in that we had not anticipated doing this time, so that certain volunteers will actually do the first round of transcription and other volunteers will follow up after them. Right now that burden is falling on us, which is one reason it's going to take us longer to put the metadata back into our digital collection than it took to collect it all, but that's hindsight.
And while we're waiting for other questions, I do have one question for both of our groups. I'm a little interested in how much staff time is involved in both of the projects. This sort of reminds me of like the old quote about cataloging time spent once is reference time spent over and over. So even though this is not cataloging per se, it's sort of you're investing a lot up front, and you may save reference time in the future. So how much time are you really how many staff people are working, how much time is involved?
I can answer that. This is Becky. Basically, our focus group members, we have, I think it's 13 this time around. And depending on the questions that are submitted, some groups are more active than others. Everybody's assigned to a community and sometimes overlap. But most of the focus group people are only supposed to spend 10% of their time working on History Hub. Since I'm also the coordinator and a community manager, I spend a little bit more time than that. Also, since a lot of the military questions are here in College Park, and I'm the only one in the focus group that's out here that knows military records, so it kind of falls on me this time. But and Kelly works on this. She does the technology part of it, and so we're always communicating back and forth when various things come up.
So it's actually, and the Library of Congress found this as well, that it's because there are a number of people working on it, each person spends no more than maybe half an hour a week, would you say?
It depends.
Yeah, like half an hour to 2 hours. It's not the heavy load that we were fearing at first, but we also haven't publicized it that much. So for right now, it's pretty light.
Okay, thank you. What about you all in Alabama, Steve and Meredith?
Well, like I said, it took about 18 months just to scan the cards, and that was probably 20 people in total at various times. So we had some full-time staff members, part-time staff, students, several volunteers, a number of volunteers. I ran off some volunteers, in fact, because of it. So that took a long time up front, as we knew it would. On the back side of things, there's one staff member working on it right now full-time, pretty much, for right now. So it is a serious investment of staff time for us, but it's adding to our digital collections, and that's why the people in that section of the building exist, or we're here, is to work on projects like this. So this is just one of several digital projects that we have going on. So it has been a large investment of staff time, but like I said, it would be even more staff time to collect all of the information that we've been able to get from the volunteers.
Okay, great. Thank you all. It does sound like a fun job, even if it's only part of your part-time for NARA and full-time for the digital assets people in Alabama. It really sounds like a lot of fun. We do have some more questions coming in. This is one for the History Hub. Can state archives contribute their own Q&A to the database, or just respond to questions that are asked on the NARA site?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would love to add your FAQs. So how we would work, how we would do it is we'd work together, and someone on the History Hub staff would ask the question, and we would ask you to answer the question. So you're not both asking and answering your own question. So it's just a little bit more divided. But yeah, that's exactly what we are hoping for.
May I ask another question? This is Meg. I believe it to be the case that anybody, just any random person, including a state archives person or somebody off the street, can create an account and ask new questions and add new content
or
answer a question.
Answer questions,
So it's really, really open right now. So go to town.
Yeah, it really depends on whether you want to log in or register as yourself or whether you want to do it as a group. If you want to do it as a group, as Kelly had mentioned before, you come up with whatever you're going to name it, and if you want everybody from your organization to use that login, then they can.
Yeah, just contact us and we can work out all the details. But yeah, that would be really exciting for us.
Okay, good. And I think you may have asked this next, you may have already answered this next question from Christina. How many experts are there on the History Hub? Did you say like you have about 13 working at this point?
Well, this is for NARA, but we have a lot of citizen experts. And then we have a variety of people over at the Library of Congress, and we don't know how many because they all use the same login. And they only monitor a few of the communities. They don't monitor all of them. So how many, I don't know how many citizen logins we have.
We have, oh my God, I just put it in the, a couple thousand people registered users.
And we have some people that are on a lot.
Okay, good. We have a few questions about volunteers. Liz Quello from Maryland asked, how do you communicate and reward volunteers, and do you know how many cards each volunteer transcribes? And Jamie Awalt sort of followed up on that to say, does From the Page allow you to run reports on how productive each volunteer is, and do you have any kind of badge or other recognition?
So yes, you can determine how much a volunteer has done. Every user, you can just, there are reports that you can run. You can limit it to certain time periods, and it'll tell you how many cards and how many minutes have been, well, rather than cards, it's more the number of edits that they've done and the number of minutes that they have been working on the project. And then if you click on a person's name, you'll get all of the stats for them, although that will include not only your project, but also any others that they've worked in, but you can limit it to your own. As far as communication goes, we have done another feature from the page. There's on the Contributors tab at the very bottom, there's a list of all of the users' emails together, which you can easily cut and paste into an email to send out a message. And I've done that a few times. I made sure to put them in the blind copy so in case people were concerned about privacy, they wouldn't see each other's email addresses. But I did that a few times to make announcements about the project. And for our next project, we will do more of that, constant communication, perhaps monthly updates, and we can have a template in place and have some things ready to go. This time we jumped in, and next time we'll be more prepared. As far as rewards, we haven't done anything yet. I have been thinking about that, something that would be meaningful to them, but virtual, because we don't have their mailing addresses. We didn't get that kind of information, so it's not like we can send them a certificate, and they're not all local. There's no badge or anything like that in the system and from the page like there might be in other systems, but it would be nice to be able to send them, at the very least, I don't know how much they would care, but a certificate or something. I mean, I will say, even in-house when we were scanning these cards, one of our volunteers, who is a retired Army officer, said, look, we need a map or something to color in on the wall at least. So we did, like children, we had a map and we would color in the counties that they got complete. So that was a reward for on-site volunteers. So I realize it doesn't take much. And so we will, since we're wrapping up the project right now, we are looking for some way to say thanks to them.
Meredith's mention of that map reminds me of something. These cards were organized by county, and we saw this as an opportunity to reach out to county historical societies and genealogical societies to encourage them to adopt, so to speak, the records from their respective counties, and several did. I mean, it grew so quickly that that wasn't the case all the time. But in several instances, we heard from local organizations who were groups within counties who were very interested in being responsible for the transcription of their own county's records.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, you all. That's a lot of good information about how you're dealing with volunteers. I wonder, does the same go with the citizen experts for History Hub? Is there anything that you're doing to reward people who are sending in information?
We are not. We, for a while, piloted a gamification module that would allow kind of virtual rewards and badges, but nobody really cared so much, so they really just so yeah, they're not really, we haven't found that that has been something that people want. We do have some of our citizen archivists are really invested in being seen as experts. So on the platform, they're kind of more invested in their personal reputation than in the rewards that we were, you know, just kind of silly tchotchke rewards that we were doling out.
And this is Meredith again from Alabama, and that sort of is similar to what we heard from our volunteers who thanked us for even having the project. It's like they saw it as you could see from the quotes, an honor and something that they were looking forward to doing. Like the project itself was its reward, which I was always so thankful to them for having that sort of attitude because they were just willing and happy to help.
Okay, good. Here's one more question for History Hub. Is it only the staff only the staff responses that are reviewed, or are those from citizen experts also reviewed? If the latter, how does it work, and are they individually validated?
We moderate everything so that all responses are checked, but we don't check for how true something is. We don't really see that as our role. More it's that we can correct misinformation if it exists, but it's not really our role to make sure that all responses are 100% correct. Because honestly, if someone has an incorrect assumption, they're going to have it whether they post it or not. And the best thing that we can do is respond to to whatever has been said that's incorrect with what we know to be correct. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I answered that. Becky, do you want to add something about that?
That's pretty much. I mean, a lot of times researchers assume that work for one group of records, it works for everything. And so the staff, when we get to the point, you know, when we're going to answer, we will either give them kudos by saying, as in Mr. blah, blah, blah said, you know, yes, but also blah, 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 blah works. And, or we just ignore what they said and respond with what NARA has and where the records are.
Okay. And here's a good question for both of you. Do you consider a disclaimer on your site? Or what kind of statement do you have to note that this is sort of crowdsourcing information?
We do have something in our kind of our usage that says that that this is crowdsourced, and we also reserve the right to not post things that are, you know, off topic. But yeah, we make it pretty clear that this is crowdsourced.
We actually haven't done anything yet, but thank you for bringing that up. It's very good. We can put that in the description for our digital collection just as a note to people who care to read where the information that's searchable online came from. But we didn't have to do that from the page because it was clear that's what was happening, but we will certainly do that in-content DM once more content is added.
Well, great. And thank you all for all your questions. And I'd particularly like to thank our presenters today, both from the National Archives and from the Alabama Department of Archives and History. It's pretty exciting to talk about these projects, and it's also good to know that we have an opportunity next month at the Great Ideas Exchange Day to follow up on some of these ideas and to look at further collaborations on working together on projects like this. So we appreciate all of you attending today and hope to see you in August if you're going to be at the annual meeting on Great Ideas Exchange Day on August 14th. You'll also be hearing from the History Hub and from the Alabama World War I Service Project again when at the Great Ideas Exchange Day, and we'll have some time to talk further among ourselves about how best to share information and how to work together on these kinds of projects. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Margaret Bell to do a little wrap-up, but we do appreciate you attending today and hope that you'll stick around to hear a couple little announcements. Thank you.
Okay, and Barbara, we had one other question, Barbara. Did you catch the one about crowdsourcing versus OCR?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, it's in the Q&A. This is for Alabama. I'll ask this real quick and we'll finish up here. Was there a mix of for Alabama, was there a mix of typed and handwritten cards that you chose to crowdsource versus OCRing?
No, this collection was entirely typed, but it was full of errors. The typing was not necessarily easy to read because it was typed on a form. We didn't for a second think that the OCRing would be a very effective way to get that information off them and would require more checking on the back end. So we feel happy with going this route. The next set of cards that we're looking at are a mixture of typed and handwritten, so we will do the same thing again. And because some of these cards, not only were they difficult to read or things have been typed over, sometimes the information wasn't quite right. We didn't try to correct people's names and things like that, but if they clearly had the county wrong because whoever typed it didn't have it right, that was something only a person could know. So that's why we went with the typing.
Hi, this is Meg. This is Meg Phillips again. Before we wrap up, may I ask Barbara to confirm the day of the week for the Great Ideas Exchange in August?
It is Wednesday, August 15th. Did I say the wrong day? Sorry.
Thank you. That's exactly my understanding. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. It's Wednesday, August 15th. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed the Alabama presentation.
And yes, thanks to Meg for coordinating this for us. You've done a great job in getting us together, Meg, so we really, really appreciate it. She lives up to her job title as External Affairs Liaison.
Thank you, Barbara.
Well, we're getting lots of comments of people who did appreciate this presentation, and I know I did too. I really did enjoy it. So as to conclude with the stuff, just a couple of announcements, and it's just really a chance for you to keep connected with both the sponsors for this webinar. So we start off with our first slide, which is the Council of State Archivists, and we have a link there for our website. For our Resource Center, which we've been working on, has a lot of good information there for anyone who needs to use it. Our Twitter handle, where we tweet regularly, and our Facebook page, where we also present information for everyone's use. And the same way, the National Archives, NARA, is doing the same thing, NARA. And there's the Archives website, archives.gov, the NARA Twitter handle, the NARA Facebook page, and the NARA social media directory. So those are all good sources of information. So we really do appreciate your feedback. We appreciate those who've been sharing with us during the presentation, and we're going to give you another chance, because when you exit the webinar, you're going to be automatically taken to an online webinar evaluation. Please take a few minutes to complete the survey and help us plan future webinars. And I think we could have some more as good as this one, so we'd appreciate your thoughts. So with that, I want to once again, on behalf of COSA, and then I'll have to speak for NARA here too, but I want to thank everyone for your presentations. They were great. Appreciate all our audience and those who sent good questions and those who are listening and thinking about the information we had here today. And with that, we'll say good afternoon.